When you hear the generic trip-hop music, that's how you know it's king pill time.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Xavier. Good to see you, my friend. Xavier and I got totally shit-faced last night.
Really?
No, we had like one beer.
I was going to say, that doesn't sound like you guys. What's up, people? Hello, 5 concurrent viewers. We were talking about what time we should go live today, because we started talking again and realized, oh man, we've got more to talk about. This is great. Why don't we just do another show today? And so then we were discussing, going back and forth between, well, plans for the evening, for the holiday. You know, people have lives. So is it more likely that we get more people today because people are like in holiday mode? Or is it more likely that we get fewer people today because people are in holiday mode? We'll find out. You guys can find out with us as you come on this ride. All right, let's get my windows all in the proper places. I actually wrote out I don't know what you would call this, like a syllabus, like a little timeline, things we want to talk about today. Shut up, Kyle. No one likes you. All right. Messages. Let me open this tweet that you sent me earlier because we're going to talk about it. And then I need to find one other tweet that we're also going to talk about.
We prepare for these shows.
Yeah, we do.
We're ready to go. Right on
you see,
time.
the problem is, I was trying to come up with the title for the show, and I was struggling. I was in a pickle.
Yeah, this one's not very
good. Really struggling, and I couldn't come up with exactly what I wanted to call it. And I needed my partner in crime to help me out. I sent him a text, and I said, trying to come up with a title. Here are some different ideas, and I sent him all these different ideas, and I heard nothing. Nothing back. I was left alone and isolated to defend for myself.
I didn't get the notification. I just now see this.
Likely story.
Likely. Red Caesar isn't coming to save you would have been better.
Yeah. Well, oh well. Because I think that was probably the one that I was going to go for. But then I was thinking, well, we just coined this new term yesterday, so we should emphasize this term. We should get that into the title somehow. So
by the end of the week, I'm going to hate it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. People are going to attribute it to us. We're going to be like, no, please, no. Don't talk to us about that. I regret it all. But of course, for me, all my good ideas, or all of my ideas came from Cooper. And it's just Cooper's fault. Okay, so let me see. Trying to find this particular. So we were sitting talking to each other, coming up with other people who we would categorize as.
Yeah, okay. Turn the music off.
Oh, sorry. I forgot the music is going. All right, here we go. Ooh, fade out. Okay. No more music. So we were sitting here talking about Gonics and coming up with other examples. Because we had a call to action last night. We said, hey guys, why don't you send us examples of people being Gonics? And we're here, it's literally another day, and I haven't gotten a single message from someone. Not a single one of you. How lazy are you? We gave you an explicit call to action. It'd be so easy. Just go out and find one. Just point them out, tag them, send it to me. Say, hey, look, here's someone being a Goonuch. You don't even have to send it to me. You can just tag me in it. Real King Pilled on Twitter. It's very easy. So simple. But no, our audience just doesn't listen to us.
Maybe they're not really smart. So that's why we're doing this stream, is to give you a better example, like a more concrete example of what we're talking about, so you know what to look for. Maybe yesterday was a bit too abstract for you, but today we're really bringing it down to the pen and paper.
So you're saying that today's episode is for the slow boys.
Yeah. This one,
Nice.
Xavier, Kyle, especially Kyle. This one's for you.
What was the brand, the product that had that as a catchphrase? This one's for you. Who was that? I can't remember. Let's look this up. This one is for you.
That seems like something a random username would know.
Oh no. Ugh. Well, this one is for you. Googling that doesn't do anything for you because you get weird words I can't pronounce. Young City, Y-U-N-G, Young City. David Guetta. These are, I hate this. I cannot take that entire cultural milieu. Have you seen the video of David Guetta after George Floyd when he had like his thing about like this? He made like his mix that goes out to George Floyd and all of his family. And he like does this really awkward buildup to it. And then does like the beat drop over. It was like a clip of Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech or something like that. And he's like,
Ugh.
this goes out to George Floyd and all of his family. Shout out to all of you. And then starts playing this Martin Luther King, and he's just like, just DJing it up. It is the most ham-handed, cringe thing that's been produced. It's like that's the sort of thing that like you see that happening, and all of a sudden, all of the less ham-handed but equally cringy manifestations of this fake culture thing in society, it like really stands out at you. It's just like glaring you in the face that this whole fucking thing is fake. This is all fake and game.
That would be really funny if it was like intentionally ironic or something.
Right, yeah. Like that would be the Zoomer thing, that you do that and it's intentionally ironic. No, it was being completely serious. Coca-Cola, that's what we were trying to think of. Coca-Cola, this one's for you.
David Guetta,
okay.
is he a singer? He's a singer.
Yeah.
Right?
No, he's a DJ. He's kind of like yeah, he's sort of like I can't think of like Avicii, sort of along the same sort of lines.
Oh, okay, cool.
Similar kind of music. Yeah, look it up. Let me just double check this while we're on it. So David Guetta, George. It's one that like dyed in the wool regime libs will point out is like, look how fucking cringy and awkward and uncomfortable this is. Look at how completely transparently commercialized and fake this is. That's how bad it was. It was so over the top that even the people who live in this culture, like this culture is theirs, even they were like, oh, that's beyond the pale. Yeah, look up David Guetta. It's spelled Guetta, tribute to George Floyd.
I don't think I will.
Yeah.
Random username mentioned something rather interesting, which I'm sure maybe we won't talk about it today, but we'll talk about it at some point. All right, this seems to track with the things we've been talking about. Another, quote, extreme right wing won Netherlands today. He visited Israel 40 times over the last 25 years. What's up with that? Argentina, Netherlands, what's going on?
Huh. Interesting. It's
That is
almost like there's a it's almost like there's some sort of sentiment underneath the surface that's manifesting in this sort of dynamic. All right. I can't find the freaking thing I was trying to look for. But oh, here it is. Finally. I found it. I didn't find the actual tweet itself, but this will do. So we're talking about Gonics. I just quick setup for this, I guess. So Gonic is a term, a neologism that we conceived yesterday on the show. If you're coming upon this later on, you can go back and you can listen to our last show where we talked about it in detail, and we gave an example of a particular Gonic and why, at least in that instance, he's functioning in the role of a Gonic. And so
today we've got your Goonuch report.
Yes. So this is going to be your Goonuch report. We were thinking of an example for the Goonuch report, and So Goonuch is ultimately, it's a portmanteau between Gooner and eunuch. So Gooner eunuch. We want to define more precisely what this is. So as we're thinking of examples, we're thinking of ways to actually tighten the term up a little bit so you know how to use it effectively, because it's a specific phenomenon that we want to be able to talk about. So we have to take a mouth sound and attach it to the phenomenon. So we want to make sure that you guys are, now that you know the mouth sound, we want to make sure you guys are attaching it to the correct phenomenon so that we all know that we're talking about the same thing. So a Gonic is not someone who's simply gay. Simply being gay it does not qualify you for being a Gonic. For example, someone who is simply gay but not a Gonic is this person right here. And I don't mean academic agent. We like academic agent. I'm talking about this goofball in the middle, James Lindsay. So he has this tweet that went around and everybody was freaking out about it the other day. And this is just the most recent one. I'm just pulling it up as an example. But Nazism is the right hand of the left. Hamas is the right hand of the left. Christian nationalism is the right hand of the left. Post-liberal distributism is the right hand of the left. This is just gay. This isn't being a Gonic. This is simply just being transparently gay. I think what James Lindsay is kind of a wannabe Gonic. He's almost like he's trying to get himself upgraded to Gonic, but he's so bad at it because he just kind of isn't one that he just comes off as gay. What's that?
I said he's too lib.
Yeah. He's just transparently
enlightenment and stuff,
Yeah.
Enlightenment. Who needs that?
So a Gonic is an evolution of liberalism beyond this point. This is just kind of like, I don't know, generic 90s liberalism or something is what is the James Lindsay shtick. A Gonic specifically is a crypto.
I will give James Lindsay a little bit of credit that he actually has read. He's at least read.
Yeah.
Right winger stuff.
Right.
He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, and a lot of his analysis on it is really good. Like I learned a lot of the Frankfurt School stuff I've learned that I've since gone and verified. I was like, okay, yeah, this guy knew what he's talking about. He's good at this. Part of the reason why he's so good at it is because it's his world. Like this is his milieu. You'll notice that every time he talks about any of this stuff, he's always giving the perspective from the left. He's always describing the perspective, the view of the world from the perspective of the left. Sometimes he's describing the left, but he has like he's describing the left to the left, critiquing the left that they're lefting wrong. That's his entire persona. And he doesn't qualify as a Gonic because specifically one of the particular traits that picks out a Gonic, the way that we're using the term, is a crypto lib. So someone who actually sees themselves as having escaped the liberal dialectic. They see themselves as having withdrawn themselves from it. They're fully like woke to the system, to the matrix. They're the ones who see it now, and they see themselves as right wing, explicitly right wing.
Yep.
They don't hem and haw around neither left nor right libertarian bullshit. They advertise themselves and maybe even directly see themselves as explicitly right wing. That they're like the furthest fringe of the right wing that you can go. This is the Gonic. This is core to the Gonic psychology. So it's someone who fits that bill, but actually, if you unpack and investigate their perspective, you realize that they haven't pulled themselves out of that liberal dialectic. They're still operating within it. And the calling card for it really is nihilism. And that's what we're going to get into here today.
Yep.
So James Lindsay is an example of someone who is not a Gonic, could be confused for a Gonic because he does give off big Gooner and eunuch energies. He does give those energies off quite a bit, but he doesn't qualify as a Gonic. He could be a Gooner, he could be a eunuch, but he can't be a Gonic because he doesn't have that crypto lib essence to him. Essence, I mean, in the terms of like assent, not in terms of like Aristotelian. Okay, so let me refer back to my show planner here that I put together. Make sure I'm hitting all the right points. I am. So
we're talking about our favorite Gonic today.
Yes, We are actually for the Gonic report. It turns out we didn't plan on this. This isn't intentional. We're actually probably not going to talk about him like this again because we don't want to fully seem like reply guys here. I mean, we're kind of being reply guys, but we don't want to like really lean into the identity. But our good friend Zero HP Lovecraft is returning to the show. Now today, we're actually going to, as our good friend Jason from the 2-Bit podcast, as he likes to say, we're actually going to shine his shoes a little bit here. Because we're going to go through this tweet that he put out a few days ago that Cooper brought to my attention. And he makes some really interesting points. This is actually a really profound, fascinating analysis that is like 99.5% correct. The problem is that 0.5% is really, really important and fundamental. This is kind of like the analogy of the dog shit and the brownies. Like having just a tiny little bit of dog shit in your brownies, you still have dog shit in your brownies. It doesn't change the fact that it doesn't make them brownies. They're brownies with dog shit, which is a whole different category than brownies. This is part of the what it is to be a Goonuch. It's like a great big brownie, like sheet of brownies. This is amazing. It looks exactly like the thing I want to see. I want to see a based right-wing guy out proclaiming my right-wing message. And it just happens to have just a little bit of dog shit that's spread throughout it.
Oh, hey, we've got a submission for the Goonuch report from Kyle.
Ooh.
Not Lyle, Kyle. Adam Green.
Oh, yeah. Adam Green.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah. That one's, he's a really, really obvious one, too. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kyle. That's fantastic. We're going to save that for a future one. There is no greater... should I say it? Yeah, I'll say it. There is no greater champion of the cause of the tiny hats than Adam Green. No one in the world will argue for his. No one in the world will argue for the predominance and power and majesty of the tiny hats like Adam Green will. Actually, he's someone that in this thread here we're going to read about Zero HP Lovecraft. We're gonna touch back on him later on because this is interesting. It's actually funny. There's something I just realized that you've got Goonics targeting Goonics because this is absolutely Adam Green would actually be the type of person that Zero HP is talking about in this thread. All right, so we're gonna get into this, and then we're gonna get to the point at the bottom here where we explain to you why. This is Goonicry, even though it sounds really, really good, and there's actually a lot that we can learn from this, and we can use elsewhere. At the heart of it is Goonicry, and then for the title here, waiting for Red Caesar is Goonic Cope. You're going to see why that is, and we're going to tell you what you should be doing instead of just waiting for Red Caesar, waiting for the Deus Ex Machina. Goonic on Goonic violence. Let's see. Just looking at some of these comments. Okay. So reading from for the people on audio, we do have the podcast up again. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't looked us up and subscribed to us on the podcatchers, go do that and you can get the audio version of this. So we're reading along from this tweet from Zero HP Lovecraft. He says, used to be, there were hardly any vegans at all, but it was popular for libs, especially, to be vegetarian. You can be healthy on a vegetarian diet that includes lots of eggs and dairy. But this type of veganism was an unstable shelling point. Veganism has almost totally supplanted it, in part because it's easier for restaurants and food manufacturers to support both groups by catering to the more extreme diet, but more because the extremism itself is attractive. This is a really interesting observation. Just this right here, from the jump, he could have left it at this, and this would be a really interesting observation. The extremism itself is what motivates people. In the case like veganism is like the purity form or the more pure form of vegetarianism, and that purity drives the extremism because you have the purity spiraling thing that happens. He's pointing it out here in veganism and vegetarianism, but he's going to take it elsewhere in a little bit. From a signaling perspective, the vegans can stand to the left of the vegetarians and crow about how much holier they are. The moral positioning of the two groups causes most vegetarians to collapse into vegans. There is a holiness gradient from omnivory to pescatarian to vegetarian to vegan. Once you start falling down a holiness gradient, you tend to land at the bottom. This is brilliant writing. This is absolutely fantastic writing. Using that visual, the visual of a holiness gradient and falling down into that holiness gradient, and the tendency that once you start falling, the tendency is to go all the way to the bottom. This is a really visual way of writing that I think really makes it strike home.
I wonder if he's a shape rotator.
That's a good question. Last night in the voice chat in the Discord, we finished doing the show yesterday and hopped into the Discord and wound up going for, I don't know, like 5 hours. I fell asleep. I fell asleep in the middle of the chat and woke up in the morning with headphones in and no idea what was going on. So it was fun. But one of the things we were talking about is shape rotating. And we were comparing the way, I want to say it was either, I don't want to dox people. One of the friends in there, we were comparing the way that we go about it. And one of them was saying that the way when he thinks of an apple, he just immediately thinks of like the crunchiness, the sound, the juice, the experience of an apple. And for me, what I found is that if I'm sitting here visualizing an apple, it's really hard. Like I can pull up just like an abstract apple and sort of look at it. But if I imagine myself like walking up to the dining room table and picking up an apple off the table, then I can see it perfectly. I can see the perfect image of it in my head. I can turn it around, look at the colors, the way I can see the things on it and everything. But it has to be grounded in like a specific experience versus just kind of abstractly holding it there. What about you?
I'm not a shape rotator.
You're not.
I can conjure up kind of an imprint of an apple, but I can't like spin it around and look at it. I can't do that.
Oh, black-pilled once again.
Sorry, I'm a word cell.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, back to this. The friction that stops you from falling to the bottom. That's again, it's very visual. It's a very tangible analogy. You have this holiness gradient that you're falling down, and then there's friction. So you've got this thing you're rubbing against. That's as you're getting closer. The friction that stops you from falling to the bottom is that signaling holiness becomes more expensive the deeper you get. Vegans and vegetarians get around this by cheating when no one is looking, just like everyone else. A similar thing happens when people get into extremist online politics, extremist in quotes, because we're talking about mostly normal, boring people who have fallen into a different sort of signaling pit. So signaling pit, this is another like neologism that I mean, it's not technically a neologism, it's a term, but signaling pit, this is something that could be really useful. This is like it's a particular mouth sound that captures a mind picture that's really useful to think about as we're moving through different issues. One of the most common holiness gradients, which tends to drive people insane, is now this one. I'm pretty sure if I say this phrase that it's gonna get something going. So I don't think I'm gonna say that phrase, but it's the
Khazarian question.
Yeah, the Khazarian question. A person discovers disproportionate representation of Jews in elite positions in society, sees the classic "my fellow whites" type of obvious ethnic hatred that many Jews level at Gentiles, and then finds himself rolling down a holiness gradient where everyone is trying to be more anti-Semitic than everyone else. The bottom is approximately the position that the Jews, quote unquote, are the ultimate fundamental metaphysical font of all evil and badness in the universe. This is an absurd thing to believe, of course, but there's not really a stable shelling point between vegetarian anti-Semitism versus vegan anti-Semitism. Because when you become fixated on purity, all calls for moderation are, rightly in a way, felt as attacks.
That's Adam Green.
Yes. This is Adam Green. This is the ironic. This is the font of all black pills. It comes from the people who talk and think this way. For some people, it's the Jews. For some people, it's the Illuminati. For some people, it's the state.
Usually,
some people.
Usually, these are different ways of talking about the same group.
Yes,
there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah. Right, which is then what makes the group he's talking about here specifically get even more like wrapped around the axle. It's all the same group. Ah! You guys are all talking about the same people. The problem is, I think he just kind of
You're doing
alludes
that
to
group a
this.
favor, really, when you hold
Yes.
that position. You're kind of doing their marketing for them.
Right.
Like, if you paint them as being like all powerful and all seeing, or just even more powerful than they actually are, they can leverage that perception against you. So you're kind of, in a way, making them more powerful than they are.
Right. Right. The thing that Adam Green does, like if you've watched one of his debates on like the Crucible or something like that, you'll notice the way that every single one of these debates goes is he says that Christians are crypto Jews and then cites a whole bunch of Jewish texts to Christians who are saying, we don't believe that. That's silly. That's absurd. And he's like, no, 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 no. This is what the Jews said. You have to believe this. He is the one who's arguing for the Jewish perspective. His entire ethos is arguing for the Jewish perspective and trying to get everybody else to believe the Jewish perspective because he thinks the people who hold the Jewish perspective are a threat, which is preposterous. If your operating premise is people who hold the Jewish perspective are a threat to life and civilization, then probably it's probably not the case that the best practice for that is going to be go around and try and get a whole bunch of people to believe the Jewish perspective. This is the way human brains work.
That is Goonuch.
If your thing is believe the Jewish perspective is wrong, and I want everyone else to believe that it's wrong, trying to convince them that it's true isn't going to help them convince them that it's wrong. It's silliness. Like you just said, yeah, it's the height of Goonuchery. We got what is this? Oh, a super chat from
Super Chats.
Woohoo! 2-Bit Podcast, $5 Australian, says for the cause. Thank you, sir. We're gonna be quoting you here in a few minutes. We're gonna be using one of your special terms that I meant to mention on the show last night and I forgot to. I do want to say for the people who've watched the last few streams we put out, I realized that so there's a thing when you're setting up a stream and asks you what sort of ad distribution you want on the show, and it just gives you 3 options. You can do conservative, balanced, or aggressive. So I had it set on conservative, which is the fewest ads, because I don't want you guys having an ad popping up in the middle of the show while you're watching. But then people were still complaining about ads popping up, and I'm like, well, like, how do I turn it off? And I realized that you have to go to set them manually. There's like a setting where you can put the ads in manually and then just not put any ads in, which I'm already not putting ads in. So I just set it to manual. So apologies to those of you who were annoyed by the ads popping up. But if you do want to support the show in spite of not having ads on it, then you can give us a super chat because we are monetization eligible. Another super chat. Random username, $5 US. So $5 real dollars. He says what Jason said. Thank you, sir. I can't help but think about how in World War I, the Jays convinced the powers that be that they could make a difference. And they did just because people believed them. Yeah. This is the old trick. And this is part of what makes Goonuchery so insidious. Is why we're highlighting it, why we're drawing it out. So let's continue with this. So calls for moderation are rightly in a way felt as attacks. People will respond to this post and tell me that I'm somehow running cover for Zionists, and they'll do this because they are behaving according to the exact dynamic above. A key point of failure is to over-abstract from obvious but forbidden truths, such as Jews tend to practice ethnic nepotism, into imagining a monolithic, hive-like entity called the Jews, which is quasi-omnipotent and which always acts in its own interest across centuries and so on. It's in this way, this is me talking now, it's in this way that the people who hate these what they perceive as entities the most are the ones who are actually reifying them. They're giving them like divine status. If you've ever tried to argue with someone who is convinced that the Illuminati is going to destroy us, or that the Jews are going to be the end of us all, or any of these things, it's not that any of those positions is per se wrong. It's that even if that was the case, the last thing that you would want to do is turn your enemy into a completely insurmountable obstacle. If you're saying that these people are so powerful, so long-reaching, so like have been planning this and bringing this into fulfillment for generations upon generations upon generations, and all you do is talk about how incredibly capable and powerful they are, then you're just instantiating their power in the world.
Like
You
an extra
are
20,
indistinguishable from one of their minions.
an extra 20 points of IQ, I don't think equips somebody or a group of people to be able to like plan out long cons over the course of millennia. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of this, what that misses when you turn this into a this has to be coordinated, therefore this is an explicit conspiracy theory that's been cooked up blow by blow in some deep, dark, secret lab. Like, there's elements of that. There's definitely elements of that. But simply having that element isn't enough for that to be the element. There's also a lot of cases, and predominantly the case, where you get the appearance of a coordinated conspiracy simply because of a network of incentives, where you have a whole bunch of people whose incentives happen to align in such a way that they act as a conspiracy, even if it's not an overt conspiracy. And talking about everything as if it has to be like a explicit conspiracy handed down by aliens that has persisted throughout, like through, there's like constant contact with the demon realms to summon them and to take instructions from them. Yes, there are people who do that. That's also not the reason why these sorts of things persist. They also persist because the way they grow in kind of like a virus fashion or a parasitic fashion, they attach themselves onto systems and institutions and motivate the people within those systems and institutions to act in such a way that will further the virus. And this sort of thing doesn't have to be conscious on the part of the people who are actually doing it. Each of them is just playing a role within a larger body. And you miss that reality if you treat this whole thing as if it's just an explicit conspiracy that's been cooked up and planned for generations and generations. Even if it was an explicit conspiracy that had been cooked up over generations and generations, I would say pragmatically, from a strategic perspective, you wouldn't want to talk about it that way. Because, again, if you look at it as just that, you miss this other dynamic, which is very real, of the way that conspiracies develop organically while the conspirators don't even realize they're operating as part of a conspiracy.
Do you know who this guy is?
Which guy?
Slow Boy says, did you listen to Keith Woods talk with Duvid? Duvid straight up said the Juice are both God individually and the Messiah as a group. Is this another Gonic?
I don't know if Keith,
I don't know.
I don't think Keith Woods would be, if that's what you're asking about.
No, not Keith Woods.
Duvid
I'm talking about this Duvid guy. I don't know who that is.
If I would say saying something that much, that explicit,
that might exempt.
Yeah, that goes beyond the crypto lib. That's the way I see this is essentially that liberalism is like crypto Talmudism. So being a crypto lib is like a double crypto Talmudist. So like this guy just sounds like a straight up Talmudist to me. But maybe there's some context there. I'd be interested to see that. Duvid used to go on with Adam Green all the time. Interesting. So he's... Wait a second. So he is a... What? Okay.
He's a Talmudist rabbi?
Is he a Jew? Or is he not? Is he... Because if he's going on Adam Green, does he share Adam Green's perspective? Interesting. Double crypto Talmudist. Yeah, man. A rabbi. So is he like a rabbi who is... He is a Jew. So he's a rabbi. He's a rabbi who is endorsing Adam Green's perspective, or is he like doing outreach to Adam Green? Like he thinks maybe if I go find the biggest anti-Semite in the world and I like entertain discussion with him, I can bring him around. I mean, you wouldn't have to move Adam very far to bring him around because he's not that far from it.
He just likes to do Jew apologia on dissident right-wing channels. That's really weird.
What a fascinating person. I wonder if it's real or if it's like
imagine telling Adam Green that you're a god, you know, like
yeah,
and your people are the Messiah.
Yeah. I feel like this has to be like a really long con LARP. Like it's a not a LARP necessarily, but like it's a guy doing it ironically. Like he's embedding himself in this character specifically for the purpose of lampooning it.
It's probably my favorite Jew. Just a little bit I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's like a Jew Zoomer. A Jew Zoomer. Okay. I'm going to read this again. So a key point of failure is to over-abstract from obvious but forbidden truths, such as Jews tend to practice ethnic nepotism, into imagining a monolithic hive-like entity called the Jews, which is quasi-omnipotent and which always acts in its own interest across centuries and so on. People will say to me, how is hating the Jews different from hating the blacks? That is, we can agree that both have racial tendencies which are on net deleterious to Western civ. And we do agree about that. The difference is that no one thinks there is such a thing as the blacks. There are merely blacks acting out their individual black lives, some of which ostensibly matter. It's actually good to treat both blacks and Jews like individuals. This is him like stating this. It's actually
I don't know. He kind of gives himself spelling actually that way. I think he's kind of giving himself an out.
Yeah, I think this is one of those instances where it's like I'm gonna what would it be? I'm going to unironically hold a position so that it kind of becomes like a Mott and Bailey thing, where you get so embedded in Zoomer irony that you start figuring out a way to smuggle in your actual positions that you hold that you think are going to be unpopular. You sort of smuggle them in under this banner of irony, and you test them out. You sort of test the waters with it and see how do people react and respond to it. You kind of read are they actually going, do I think they'll go for this if I actually say, well, no, actually, unironically, I think this is true. That's how this strikes me. This strikes me that he wants to say we need to treat blacks and Jews like individuals, but I don't want to come out and seem like I'm endorsing individualism. So I have to establish my anti-individualism cred first, and then I can bring it in this unironic way. He says it's actually good to treat both blacks and Jews like individuals, to realize that tendencies are not certainties and so on. But here we run into the objection from the other side, which is that treating people as individuals is supposed to entail not being racist. This too is a holiness gradient at the top of the hill. So he's saying, on one side, you have the Adam Greens of the world who have completely spun off into derangement over imagining their enemies as God. And on the other side, you have, well, we have to be able to treat them as individuals. But on the other side, you have the people who say treating them as individuals means being anti-racist. And that's a different holiness spiral altogether.
It's a really brilliant analysis.
It is, yeah. He's identifying this phenomenon really coherently, really incisively. So the whole not being racist thing, he said, this too is a holiness gradient. At the top of the hill is people have idiosyncratic characteristics, and at the bottom of the hill is there are no differences between groups of people with shared genetics. You start at the top of the hill and you roll on down, and you end up in the world we are in, where differences in group outcomes are treated as indisputable evidence of human bias. People who are susceptible to veganism, the Khazarian question, and anti-racism are all failing in exactly the same way, just in different directions. This is fantastic. This is brilliant. He's making this point perfectly. But the answer isn't centrism. That's just a fourth holiness gradient, as repulsive as the other three. The centrist holiness gradient is where everyone is trying to outdo each other and being more centrist than the other one. which is basically boomerism.
Yep.
I think boomerism is the holiness gradient, where centrism is the mediating factor to the bottom.
And this is another data point in my theory that libertarians are spiritually boomer, with the neither left nor right thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a good point. I don't know. Have you mentioned that one to me? I don't know if I've heard that one. That's good.
Oh, well, you're getting it live, people. You're getting it live. The great ideas that Matt's gonna steal.
Yeah. See, now you know what it's like to be friends with Cooper. It benefits you a lot because you just get all of his ideas and you can steal them. And then people say, oh, wow, that's a great idea. And you say, yeah, I know, isn't it? It's just amazing.
Yeah, and I don't really care, so go for it.
Yeah, nothing means anything, right? So here's where we said that the 99.5% of this is just absolutely bang on. Some of the most profound, insightful, cogent insight on a topic like this that very few people are capable of making. He is Zero HP is like a 99th percentile thinker on the internet. Very few people can both think this with this much agility and be able to produce it coherently, and in a not just make it coherent, but make it really compelling. He is a fantastic gift.
That's what makes him dangerous.
Because this last paragraph here is the dog shit and the brownie. So he's laid out this problem that you have a holiness gradient in one direction, you've got a holiness gradient in another direction, and you're stuck here in the middle, but you can't even adopt the middle as your ground. So what does he provide as an answer? Really, there is no answer. Except that sometimes out of the mass of people who are confused and stupid and small, a man will arise who is strong and clever and charismatic, who can thread the needle of all these traps with the mind, and such a man can briefly bring sanity to the insane world.
That's the longhouse, guys.
That's it right there. That's the longhouse. There's no answer. There's nothing you can do except sit around and wait for dad to come home. This is what supposedly qualifies as like some sort of intellectual powerhouse thought leader.
If we could back up just here real quick. Xavier asked earlier on, who is Red Caesar? I forget that Xavier's rather new to these circles. So maybe we should give a little brief explainer.
Yeah, I don't remember where the term Red Caesar first came from. It might have been Michael Anton. He's probably the first person I heard talking about it. But essentially, it's the idea that it comes out of the... This is my experience of it. There's probably history of this that I'm not associated with, but I'll just describe it from my perspective. That it comes out of basically the people who are they look to Rome as an inspiring example, and they want to see a rise of a powerful authoritarian leader. And so then there's debates about is this powerful authoritarian leader that rises up again, that seems to rise periodically throughout history, this great man, is he going to be Red Caesar? So is he going to come out of the ranks of the right wing and be a right wing powerful authoritarian leader, or is he going to be a blue Caesar? Is he going to come out of the right, or a purple Caesar? Is he going to be a combination of the two? If you forced me to bet on one of them, I'd probably say purple. But yeah, so that's essentially it. And this really gets at the problem. The Red Caesar concept really strikes at the problem that we're identifying here. I
think that's Moldbug who said purple Caesar first.
Okay, yeah. Kyle says, I have to admit, I'm slightly sympathetic to the idea of Red Caesar. Depends on the day. Yeah, I think a Red Caesar would be great.
Yarvin wants a purple Caesar. Yeah, I've heard him talk about that.
Okay, yeah.
He's also kind of a lib, so I don't know how.
Yeah, we talked about Yarvin as a potential Gonic example. The problem with him is that he's too transparent with his libness. Because again, you have to have that crypto lib thing going on. So there we go. There's Jason. I always know I can count on Jason for a banger. He says all Caesars are purple by default. I think that's a very interesting question. I think we should talk about that in another show. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to unpack from there. This idea of Red Caesar and the way that it's being used by Zero HP in this particular instance is an example of the Longhouse. Now, to give you to explain this, let's talk about some of these generational archetypes. So you have the generational archetype of the day. It is very apparent that it's the devouring mother. The devouring mother is the I guess kind of like the ethos of the system.
That's the Longhouse, the gynocentrism, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. If we run with this, then what preceded the devouring mother was the tyrannical father.
We're stealing Jason's ideas here, by the way.
Yeah.
Give him credit.
Yes. Yeah. This is the devouring mother and the tyrannical father thing. This is like a Girardian. This is something a lot of the Girardians have made. Jordan Peterson has talked about this. I think Rene Girard talked about it. And there's a particular idea that Jason has coined, which is the vengeful son. So he's been predicting for a while now that what we're about to enter into the age of the vengeful son. And we'll have him on the show. I'm going to invite him on the show. I'm telling you now that he's going to come on the show and accept my invitation. And we'll talk about what the vengeful son is and what exactly that means. But briefly, I want to illustrate this because I think this kind of gets at the problem in a compelling way. You have the tyrannical father, which would be it doesn't correspond directly to generations, but it would be kind of like the greatest generation into the silent generation. They conquered the world. They accumulated vast resources together as a generation. They ushered in this era of American global dominance. The American empire was built on their backs. Then you get the boomer generation. The boomer generation was given this world. They were born into a world that was built and was being built on a fake system. A system that was designed to use this newfound empire to very quickly extract as much wealth out of it as possible and consolidate it into the capital city. So for the boomers, they didn't have to, this is the thing that's really going to get the boomers mad. The boomers didn't have to work hard for what they got. They worked hard relative to their own experience, but not relative to the experience of those who came just before them or those who came just after them. They were born into a world of safety and peace and stability and upward mobility and optimism and hope and idealism. The whole society was working together to raise the standards of living. Everyone is happy and optimistic. Everyone was jamming. This is why they could do things like go to McDonald's, get a part-time job, pay their way through college, and use their first job out of college to pay for a down payment on a house that cost like, I don't know, 40 grand or something. And they keep the house in their family for the rest of their lives, and they just build their wealth from there.
And now it's worth 350.
Right. Yeah. Minimum. So they were granted this world where they were consuming all of the seed corn of the future generations. They get themselves up into these positions of power, and then they start pulling up the ladder behind them. Eric Weinstein has talked about this this idea of these things he calls egos, or the embedded growth obligations. And it's when you set up a system that's kind of like a pyramidal system that is designed for permanent growth. There is an embedded growth obligation in it. It has to continue growing and growing and growing. But what happens when one of these egos hits its ceiling? Like, as an example, you have like a law firm where you have the partners and the associates. And the goal for the associate is to become a partner. Well, what happens when you get too many partners? Oh, you have to go out and start your own law firm. What happens when you get too many law firms? Then this is like a lagging signal. You get all these guys who go to college, they get a law degree. They spend tons of money, go into tons of debt to get their law degree. And then they show up and it's like all they have to do is be like a public defender or something and make 50 grand. Because there's a backlog at the top. because one generation got to the top, installed themselves at the top of these systems that are ostensibly supposed to be like perpetual, like economic perpetual motion machines. They put themselves at the top of it, and then they just sit there and tread water until they die. You couldn't do this in previous generations. It just wasn't economically feasible. But the boomers were the first generation that was able to do that. So the boomers are kind of like the trust fund kid. The trust fund kid of the dad who built up this great empire, created a trust fund for his kid, and then the dad was off busy working, and the kid came of age, and he was given this trust fund instead of getting a father. He didn't grow up with a father, he grew up with a trust fund. So he gets both the absence of a father in his life and the psychological effects of that, and the have lots of wealth just offered to you and you don't really have to do anything about it. So then the guys who come after that, you get down to the Zoomers, who are, what was the analogy we used earlier? It was kind of like we used the analogy of a ship.
Mm-hmm.
So the boomers were kind of like the generation that, there's this great, we're going off to this new land. We're going to the new world, and we're going to get on this great big ship, and we're going to sail over there. And the boomers were the generation who like traipsed their way across the gangplank and plopped themselves down and sat in their chairs as they're sailing out of the harbor and into the open sea. Then Gen X is like, hey, we're here now. They're the guys who are stuck back there when the ship moves away from the shore. And so they go and they chop down all the trees. They have to get, they have to use their own ingenuity and creativity. This is the entrepreneurial Gen X spirit. So they make themselves little boats and they row themselves. They're all working together, rowing themselves out there. Maybe not working together. Maybe they each make their own little boats because they're all renegades. The Gen X guys are all the Breakfast Club. They're all the renegades. Yeah, yep. So they each have their own little boat. And then you have the millennials. And I'm curious for you guys. I got a question for you guys. What is the identity of a millennial? Because I've asked this of multiple people now. The only person who's given me an answer, which in a way is kind of a non-answer because it's kind of a non-thing, was Jason. He said the millennials are the middle managers. And I think that's true in a very literal sense because they're the ones who the boomers are stuck at the top. Gen X is backed up behind them. And so the millennials were the ones who kind of jumped into the system without recognizing that it was grinding to a halt. So they made it to the level of middle manager and they can't progress beyond that because everyone up at the top is the boomers. And so everyone's just sitting around waiting for the boomers to die off to free up all of this capital and flexibility. So I don't know exactly where the millennials fit in this ship analogy, but I know where the Zoomers fit. The Zoomer generation is the generation that shows up. They're the guys that are on the shore and they're like, all right, so there's no trees. There's no boats. There's nothing here, but we've got to get out to the ship. Oh, and there's a hurricane.
Yeah,
so
we're swimming.
Yeah, so everyone's just like jump in the fucking water and go, man. They're like, well, this is like the boomers are the people who are sitting on the ship and they're looking back at the Zoomers and they're like, oh, you lazy pieces of shit. Why don't you just swim? Look at this. Look at me swim. I've got my Olympic-sized pool here on the cruise ship, and look at me swim in that pool. Look how great it is. I can swim. Why can't you swim? The Zoomers are like, fuck you. I'm sitting here swimming in a fucking hurricane trying to get out to your damn ship because all of you guys just left us behind.
The wind is blowing towards me, and it's pushing you that way.
Yeah, right. This is why the Zoomers feel both so jaded and cynical and nihilistic, but also why they have this kind of feisty fuck you attitude. Because they're sort of like the Gen X guys in that they got left behind. They feel kind of like, oh, we've got to fight for ourselves. We've got to do our own thing. But they're like, the Gen X guys used up all of the resources. We don't have any resources left to use to fight for ourselves. So we're just going to have to scratch and claw.
Jason says the millennials stayed on shore and worked as tourist agents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of have, we talked about this earlier. like with the millennials, like the older ones kind of just glommed onto Gen X as far as like their identity, and the younger ones kind of are included in the Gen Z crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I struggle to come up with like a what is the spirit of the millennial generation. And it's like I don't know. They're kind of boring.
Yeah, it's kind of this before he said middle management, which I was like, oh yeah, that works really well. Before that, I was kind of like, it's sort of like the generation whose identity is that they don't have one. They just kind of there's sort of caught in. I mean, I guess this is my generation. It's kind of like being caught in between worlds, right? There's like Gen X has a lot of personality, a lot of iconic movies. You've got a lot of and like the movies that characterize the generation. What's funny is that the actors that played those characters that characterize the Gen X spirit, most of those actors were boomers. So this is how you see like the spirit of the generation precedes the generation itself. And this way you have a lot of millennials who are like proto Zoomers. I don't know if one of the most clear proto Zoomers we've talked about before was Sam Hyde.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how old he is. I don't know if he would be Gen X or millennial. I think he's
millennial. He's got to be.
is he?
Yeah.
Because he's basically like early 80s. So I don't know if he was somewhere between late 70s and mid 80s, somewhere in there.
There's no
but
way.
he's definitely
There's no way he was born in the 70s.
okay. So he's definitely a proto Zoomer. You've got him. You've got like Jackass. Jackass is like proto Zoomer spirit. What else? There's like Anthony Cumia, the like kind of like the shock doc radio scene. A lot of that is proto Zoomer, where it just gets kind of absurd and everyone just kind of doing everything for the lulz and sort of and like nihilistic. I'm waiting for you to figure it out. We'll say here.
Wikipedia doesn't have his age or his birthday.
Our friend, I don't know if this is supposed to be MY or my, but says that Goonics hate the like button. Yeah, apparently. We've got and apparently we've got a big audience of Goonics because we need more likes. Actually, I don't know how many likes we have, but I know that that Jason said 16 watching, but only 8 likes. Why this? So do us a favor, like this stream.
Sam Hyde, according to IMDb, he was born in April of 1985.
Okay.
So
okay, yeah.
Millennial.
So he's an older millennial, but he's a millennial. So okay, where were we at? We're at
okay. You've got Silent Generation, the Greatest Generation. This is the era of the tyrannical father. And then we move into ushered in with the Boomers, the era of the devouring mother. This is the Longhouse. This is where we're at right now. And where are we going, Matt?
All right. So as Jason has pointed out many times, we're beginning to enter the era of the vengeful son. The vengeful son is like the son of the dad with the trust fund kid dad. So if you imagine the trust fund kid, he lives the high life. He's he's wealthy his whole life. Really, the trust fund kid analogy, it like Donald Trump is like an iconic boomer. It's exactly that sort of thing, that he's the guy, he got started with a small loan of $1 million. That's like that is boomerism to a T. He happens to be somehow like the only boomer in the world who gets the Zoomers, who really understands the Zoomers and can communicate with them, which is why the Zoomer attitude toward Trump, for those who love him, which is a lot of them, the Zoomer attitude toward him is like he's our boomer. Like we don't deny that he's a boomer, but he's our boomer. In fact, we're going to make memes about him being a boomer, and then he just leans into him and plays with them. And that's what makes him so. It's that ability to not take oneself seriously while also being a serious person and doing serious things. That's something that really it's like catnip to the Zoomer mind. So the fourth turning calls them prophet, hero, nomad, artist. Yeah, I think the fourth turning has a lot of applicability to this. Those archetypes fit in a lot of ways. So we're entering into, according to the fourth turning, I believe we're entering into the era of the artist, which is kind of you can see that. You can see the artistic spirit that characterizes the Zoomers, Generation Z. What was I saying? Vengeful Son. Oh, yeah. So you have the trust fund kid who is the boomer. So he's rich and successful at business and everything. And his kid is just kind of abandoned. His kid's left at home, and his dad had all this money, but his dad is spending all of his money left and right, doing everything. Maybe he's at work or whatever, but he's never actually interacting with the kid. And the kid actually grows up basically raised by a single mom. And so then he resents his father for not leaving an inheritance for him. His father spends all of his money and doesn't leave an inheritance for him. So now he's on the outs. He's raised by a single mom. He wishes that his dad was there, but he resents his dad for not being there. So he's motivated by hatred for his father, but really that hatred is born out of love. It's love that's been rejected and scorned. So then he's vengeful. He's characterized by his resentment and envy, and he wants to destroy his father, but he wants to destroy his father by becoming his father. He wants to become his father in a way that's a middle finger to his father. This is part of the characteristic of the spirit of the vengeful son. So
Jason and his single mom is psychotic. Dude,
yeah,
this is so like, this shit is so on point. This is like everything you're talking about. It's just like summed up my experience growing up to a T.
Yeah, it's been like talking to Cooper for the last. I already had like a pretty good understanding of the Zoomer mind and everything, but talking to Cooper's experience is like the archetype of the Zoomer experience. He's like the essence of it. So that's what's really helped me to start like being able to hear his story and hear him describe his experience and it helps me like triangulate what's happening and then be able to predict where things are going. So, so the longhouse then, if you think about the longhouse in this sense, well, okay, where does the longhouse fit into this tweet that we read from Zero HP? So the part we said that we took issue with was the last paragraph. He says, really, there's no answer, except that sometimes out of the mass of people who are confused and stupid and small, a man will arise who is strong and clever and charismatic, who can thread the needle of all these traps of the mind, and such a man can briefly bring sanity to the insane world. Imagine that this is a woman replying to the son who's at home, yearning to go after his father. He wants to go out and conquer and do man shit. And the woman is saying, no, you need to stay home. You need to stay home and wait till your father gets back. Your father will take you. Don't worry, your father will take you. You need to stay home. And the kid's sitting at home fucking seething. He's like, I just want to leave. I just want to get out. That's what Zero HP is functioning as here. He's functioning as the longhouse, telling you, just wait for Red Caesar. Just wait for the strong man. Don't worry, he's coming. There's nothing you can do about this. There's no answer. This is a Gordian knot, and you need to wait for Alexander. There's no way you can solve this. Don't put your mind to trying to solve it. Just wait. The strong man will come eventually.
And that's the lib. That's the nihilism right there.
Yeah. Because this is Deus Ex Machina cope. This is the thing that drives me so crazy about watching people on the. I first started seeing it within libertarian people, and then I think a lot of libertarians moved into the right wing crowds, but they took this same fucking bullshit with them. We can't do anything unless it's the one thing that literally magically solves everything all at once in one grand swoop. If it doesn't magically solve every single one of my pet problems instantly with a guaranteed chance of success, then it's not worth doing, and it sucks, and it's fake and gay, and no, I'm just going to run around and poop my pants. This it's
principles.
bullshit.
Principles, Matt. My principles.
Right, yeah. Like, you see this, I genuinely could not care less about the Argentina elections. I think the dude's entertaining. I think he's a goofball. I think he's entertaining. But I see all these people in my mentions are arguing about like whether he's good or bad. Daddy. We have a guest.
Look. Hey, buddy.
He's a turkey.
You're a turkey.
Happy Thanksgiving from Eastwood. You say Happy Thanksgiving?
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, buddy. I'll see you in a little bit, okay? Love you, dude.
We're going to the Armadillo Park.
You're going to go to the Armadillo Park?
Mm.
Wow, that sounds fun.
I'll
have fun, dude.
see you when I get back.
Okay, I'll see you when you get back.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Handshake.
Handshake. Okay, let's handshake. There you go. I love you, dude. The Armadillo Park is one of the parks in the neighborhood that the first time we walked down there was a dead armadillo on the side of the road, and he was fascinated by it. He just wanted to go check it out. So then he would ask to go back to the Armadillo Park because he wanted to go see the armadillo again on the way. So he's going to the Armadillo Park.
That turkey hat fits him like a crown.
Uh-huh. Yeah. He's a young king. Okay. Where were we at before we were interrupted? What were we talking about?
Oh man, it's right there. Help us out, chat.
Yeah. Pick us up here.
Libertarians bringing all of that shit with them into the right wing.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Deus Ex Machina. So that's what for those who don't know, Deus Ex Machina is like the phenomenon in like a book or a movie where you have like the character is at a point where it seems like the odds are completely stacked against them and there's no way they could ever possibly get out, and it just seems like everything is dead and gone, and then something magically miraculously appears that is like an act of God that you couldn't have even conceived of it. It's basically just lazy storytelling. We put someone into a really big dark hole, and then something that hasn't ever been referred to or referenced in the movie or the book suddenly comes out of nowhere to save the day. It's a storytelling technique that you can use in interesting ways, but mostly it's the hallmark of just like lazy storytelling.
Oh, you were talking about the Argentina guy.
Oh, yeah. So you get these guys who are sitting here arguing about the particular policies of this Argentina guy and whether they're good or bad, and he's a Jewish shill and he's like this thing or that thing, and like I just like, how do you get your mind wrapped up in something this dumb? Like, how do you if you're gonna like analyze
unless
these sorts
he's
of things,
perfect, unless he's Jesus, no, I don't want him.
Right. Like, how do you both invest time in analyzing these things, but also have this posture of, unless literally the most perfect person ever is successful within the American or whatever electoral system, unless democracy produces us our ideal candidate, I'm going to reject every single one of their candidates. That's the brave stand that I'm taking. So like, your identity is just revolves around rejecting different candidates that come up because they're not good enough. You who has nothing. You have no power, no influence. Your opinion doesn't matter to anyone. You're just an empty voice blah, 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 on the internet.
Yeah, have fun bitching about literally everything.
Yeah, to quote Based Fat Chad, our good friend Kyle. He got talking to a guy like this, and he's like, all right, dude, have fun bitching about literally everything. That's the perfect response. But this is this black-pilled perspective. These are black-pilled vendors. You don't need to. They're wrong on like two fronts. They're fractally wrong. Have you heard of fractals? They're this really cool math thing.
Ooh.
They're fractally wrong because, number one, they shouldn't have strong opinions about who gets elected to run Argentina. If you're actually from Argentina, if you have family in Argentina, if you live in Argentina, then I grant you, okay, yeah, you can have strong opinions. You probably shouldn't have strong opinions, but just you can have some opinions about Argentina. I'll allow it. If you don't have any connection to Argentina, then how in the hell do you rally the energy to have strong opinions about what's happening in Argentina? I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that this guy got elected. That's pretty telling. I think there's some things we can learn from that. But those things aren't hinging on his actual status or his actual candidacy. It's interesting that a guy like that who holds those opinions managed to get elected. That's an interesting thing. I wonder what we could learn from that. But like, oh, I don't think he should have been. Yeah, I think he's bad on this. This thing is not right. He shouldn't. We can't support politicians who are different from us in one little way. That just we can't.
I hate people who are different than me.
I hate them. They just keep existing. Stop existing. Yeah, Cable. Nobody gave a fuck about Argentina 5 seconds ago, and nobody's going to give a shit about Argentina 5 seconds from now. Yeah, but you get there's this sentiment online that's just I feel bad for this type of person because their mind is trapped in a vice. They've been sucked into a dialectic and they don't know how to get themselves out. So I don't want to be too hard on them. I fall into the same dialectics and I have to get myself pulled out. Like I'm starting to become more aware of it. So I'd like to think I'm getting better at extracting myself from it. And that's part of why I want to talk about this stuff with people so that other people can extract themselves from these dialectics and actually start doing something that matters. Actually doing something productive.
Mm-hmm.
What time is it? How much time do we have here? 4:48 your time. What time? How much more time do you have?
I'm good for probably another half an hour.
Okay. Do you want to talk social sexual hierarchies now, or do you think we have time for that? Maybe we save it for another.
Yeah, we'll save that one.
Save that one for another one. Okay. So there's not going to be a red Caesar. Your ideal candidate. Go ahead.
Talk about Proto Caesars and Micro Caesars.
Yeah, that's where I'm going now.
Okay, good.
There's not going to be your ideal candidate's not going to show up. That's part of where these sorts of guys are going wrong. If you're sitting around arguing about the candidacy of whoever person matters more than you because people know their name and they don't know yours. If you're sitting around arguing about those people, then you're being suckered into a grift. This grift it's kind of like the conspiracy thing I was talking about before, where it doesn't have to necessarily explicitly be a grift. It can just be a bunch of people that are all participating in a pseudo system. And that's what this is. This is a pseudo system. It's separate from it. Influences reality, but it's a separate system. And some of you can go play in that system and actually do something in it. But it takes being a certain type of person and having a certain amount of resources and ability to acquire resources and network at your disposal to actually make a difference through the political system. By and large, the system it's running itself. You can kind of jump on that like it's like a ride at the fair that's like whirling around you. You might be able to run and time your jump just right and manage to scramble aboard, but it's kind of spinning itself now. You can see where it's going. We've seen empires collapse. We've seen all this sort of thing happen before in different forms, but you can look at those and you can see, yeah, it's spinning towards some kind of a collapse. What is that collapse going to look like? Well, some people are getting stuck between this false choice, where on one hand you have the literal actual end of the world, where literally like whatever you think happens at the end of the world is what happens. The rapture, the Jesus return, the heat death of the universe, whatever. Everyone gets nuked and we go back to the Stone Age, whatever. Like the end of the world is nigh. This is one perspective. The other perspective is Red Caesar's coming soon. If we just hold on long enough, if we just tread water, then using our ship analogy before, it's like if we just tread water, then eventually a helicopter is going to show up and it's going to come scoop us out of the water and save the day. But that guy's not coming. Not in that way. If you're sitting here treading water waiting for Red Caesar to show up in his helicopter to save you, there's got to be a Pinochet reference in there. If you're waiting for Red Caesar to come show up in his helicopter and save you and scoop you up and throw you up onto the boomer ship, you're... The only person who would tell you to do something like that is someone who wants you to tread water until you drown.
Mm-hmm. Goonics.
Goonics. The Goonics are the guys who are telling you there's no answer to this. You can't solve this problem. The only thing that's going to solve this problem is Red Caesar. We need to get our political deus ex machina to show up on the scene and rubber stamp all the things that we want and fight all of our enemies for us. This is an understandable sentiment because this is the way that the American regime sells itself as, like, this is the message that it sells for itself, that this is how it works. You just get yourself into office and then you do your thing. And it's like transparent bullshit, but this is the way people just look back at history through this goofy Americanized lens, and they just see, oh, well, everything was kind of going along, and then Napoleon showed up, and he changed everything. Or name your great man of history. That they just showed up, and then they just magically fixed it all. Because like that makes you can fit that into a 2-hour movie. You can have the crisis point, you kind of have the story build up, and then you have the crisis point. And then you have the magic resolution brought to you by the screenwriters and the person of this actor. And then everyone lived happily ever after. But that's not what's going to happen. As long as people are sitting around thinking about things in these terms, just treading water, waiting for their Red Caesar to show up, Red Caesar's never going to show up. Because the only way that Red Caesar shows up is if he's, metaphorically speaking, being carried on the back of a whole bunch of little red micro Caesars. In order to have the Caesar, the Caesar has to be manifested into reality in the lives of the existing men. The existing men have to till the soil so that Red Caesar can sprout. I don't know how many different analogies I can torture here. If you want Red Caesar, and we can debate about whether we want Red Caesar or not, or what Red Caesar actually means, whatever. I think we'll just say for now, we broadly agree we want Red Caesar. We want that guy who shows up and owns all the libs and restores us to a rightful Christian monarchy, yada, yada, yada. We can argue about the details later. If you want that, if you're someone who wants to see the system get its comeuppance, you want to see a return to order and structure and prosperity and wealth, where people can work hard and make something of themselves. And there's exploration, exploring the fake stars in the fake sky, or burrowing into the hollow earth, or whatever thing you want to explore, whatever science you want to do, whatever ideas you want to debate. You want to have a nice, healthy, stable society where you can do that. Yeah, we want that too. That sort of thing doesn't descend from the sky as a deus ex machina. It's not just going to just pop out of the ether to save the day when things seem the darkest. You have to bring it into reality in your life first. As men begin acting like Red Caesar in their own lives, Red Caesar is born. Red Caesar will come to power because he's elevated to that point by a bunch of red micro Caesars. So it's time to start acting like a Red Caesar yourself in your own life. There's a quote that I came across. There's a great video. Go to YouTube later on and look up the video Appalachian Orthodoxy. or you can join the Kingpilled Discord. I posted it in there. Subscribestar.com/Kingpilled. If you go in there, you join the Discord, you can watch this video on Appalachian Orthodoxy. It's a story of the background of Holy Cross Monastery in West Virginia, which is the monastery that our subdeacon at our church, his son, Father Filaret, is one of the monks there. And you actually see him in the video about the 6-minute mark. One of the quotes from that video, it said, "When you live with hope for the future, you build things that last." And I was like, ooh, that's a writer-downer right there. When you live with hope for the future, you build things that last. This is like the quote that we were trying to think of last night. We kind of butchered it, but it's something about like men, like the healthy society is men who are planting trees in the shade of which they'll never rest. It's like if you plant a tree today, knowing that you're never actually going to get to sit in its shade, but your children and your grandchildren will. The libertarians, the autists, they call this low time preference. It's ironic that they're obsessed with low time preference, but none of them actually display it. Their political impulses are like the most high time preference. But you actually have to start living. What's that?
I'll see you in Reno.
You have to start living with this low time preference, meaning that you're willing to be patient. You're willing to start working on projects that are going to take a long time to pay off. You're not going to get immediate fulfillment. You're not going to get Red Caesar is not like a I don't know, like a Netflix that you can just subscribe to. That, you know, all of a sudden one day Netflix is going to pop in the market. Oh, thank goodness, man. I can finally subscribe to Netflix and get rid of all this shit out of my life. I'm going to subscribe to Red Caesar. That's not going to happen. Someone has to build Red Caesar. And it's going to be the people who recognize this. The people who recognize that Red Caesar has to be built first. Honestly, I think a lot of them are already that's already in process. I think there are people who are building it. But it has to be built and there has to be a market for it. And part of that market means that the market needs to be getting adapted to the idea of having Red Caesars around because they're interacting with them. People are going to choose to follow Red Caesar because they've already interacted with his prototypes. They're like, hey, he reminds me of that guy in my neighborhood that I really like. That guy who helped me out. You know, the guy who, like, when I was having a hard time, he lent me money and, you know, he came over and helped dig my car out of a ditch or whatever. Like, as you become a high value member of society and you're building constructively in your society, it doesn't matter if you start out being the ugliest, you know, like shortest little dude with a micropene. If you begin actually constructively building things of value in reality and creating a network around you of people who are indebted to you because you've done so much for them, you're going to begin to accumulate the influence and the impression of Red Caesar. People are going to start to see that because that's what Red Caesar is. Red Caesar is a guy who sacrifices himself for his people. He takes this power and this wealth. This is what like the archetype would be. This guy who takes all of this power and wealth, takes power, and then uses it to sustain his people like a true patriarch. It's a self-sacrificial servanthood type of role. That's the proper Red Caesar. And the only way that we're going to get that is when when men begin acting that out themselves in their own lives. The more that they act that out themselves in their own lives, the more it will be manifested into reality. So the Gonics are suppressing this. The Gonics want you to just sit back and be resentful. They want you to embody this vengeful son archetype where you just resent and resent and resent and resent, and there's no solution to it. The only thing you can do is just wait for Red Caesar. That's a trap because that's what prevents Red Caesar from ever showing up in the first place. So don't listen to the Goonuchs.
Yeah.
What was the quote from Wheel of Time? I know you couldn't find the exact quote, but you were going to paraphrase it because I think it was really relevant here.
By the way, everyone should read The Wheel of Time. It's a banger. Don't watch the show. The show is trash. But in any case, it's probably in the second half of the series. There is a discussion being had between one of the main characters and one of the kind of great generals. And the great general guy, who's like the head of some noble house, turns to the main character and says something to the effect of, trace any great house back far enough and you'll find a peasant who had courage when no one else did.
And a great house, I haven't read the series yet, I've begun it, but presumably a great house is led by a lord, right?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So the lord began as a peasant who decided to, instead of just resenting the fact that he was a peasant, decided to, take life by the balls and begin to create something that would sustain, something that would last. Living with a purpose and building wealth and power and influence in his community. And maybe he didn't experience that. Maybe that peasant never got to experience the greatness of the thing that he built. Just like you have cathedrals that were built in the Middle Ages it took them hundreds of years to build it. Imagine that. Imagine participating in a project that literally takes hundreds of years to complete. Like you start a building project before the American Revolution. And today it's still going. Imagine what it takes to have a society that can sustain something like that. But you'll get the black pillars who will look at this and be like, "Oh man, this is what they took from us. This is what they took from you. They took this away from you. You don't get that society anymore." Yeah, not with that attitude. If you want to have, I don't see these guys who are, this is what they took from us. What are those guys doing when they log off? Are they going out and starting a project like that? I haven't heard about any projects lately. If they're out there, let me know. No, they're gooning.
Yep.
Yeah. Build a project. Start building something. You don't even have to make money with it at first. Just exercise your creative impulse. I think there was a quote in that video, the Appalachian Orthodoxy video. It said, there's an old, I can't remember where it came from, but there was an old quote, or maybe it was an old Russian proverb that said that there's 3 things that every man must do: plant a tree, start a family, and build something. I don't remember what it was. But that's the idea of what I'm talking about here. We live in the consumption economy. We live in an economy built around commerce because the bones of our economy were constructed by merchants. So the way to transcend that mercantile spirit in the society is by becoming producers. This is what our guys are missing, is production of things of value. They'll talk about, look at this society, what we built, and they took it away from us. This is like the conversation of a defeated victim.
It's like the vengeful son.
It's the vengeful son. Yeah. Look what he took from me. Look at the inheritance I should have had. Well, you can sit around and stew about not having that inheritance and self-identify as a victim of these people you have contempt for, while also somehow trying to claim that you think you valorize dominance. You valorize domination. Yeah, you're getting pretty dominated, it looks like. You're getting pretty dominated by these people you have contempt for. Maybe that's why you have contempt for them. I don't think I mentioned this on the show yesterday, but there's a I think there's a degree to which, actually, in this tweet here that we were talking about earlier with Zero HP Lovecraft, I think he demonstrates this, that a lot of these guys that are, they just go like, they really take the either the so-called racism or so-called anti-Semitism. They really lean into it and just really own it as a brand. It honestly kind of starts coming off as penis envy.
Well, and
like,
I don't think it's an accident that the slur cuck arose in right-wing circles. I think it's projection.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, there's and like cuckoldry porn is massive. So a lot of these guys, they have contempt for the Khazarians or the other ethnics because they are envious of them. They envy that those people have a collective identity. That's what he's doing here. That's what he wants to do. That's what I'm gonna pop psychologize him. I think that's what motivated this whole tweet in the first place. Is he wants to be able to say, treat blacks and Jews like individuals. Don't even grant them the premise of a collective identity, because that's ours. He's positioning himself defined around a negative. That in order to have our collective identity, they can't have a collective identity. We have to deny their collective identity, which is implicitly a position of envy. It's penis envy.
And it's
Girardian. Go ahead.
Not an accident that some of these guys every now and then it happens where one of these guys gets exposed as being like Jack Murphy. Great example.
Mm-hmm.
One of our other favorite Goonics. A literal cuck.
Yes. Jack Murphy would have been a Gonic prior to being exposed as just being pretty gay. So now he almost can't be he's kind of like a post Gonic. Yeah, you see a lot of these guys. Like, there's a reason that they maintain the OPSEC that they do. I'm not necessarily saying that's the case for Zero HP Lovecraft, although I haven't eliminated that as a possibility. But part of the reason why these guys maintain the OPSEC that they do is because they're LARPing. They're LARPing, and in their heart of hearts, deep down, they're crypto libs who have penis envy. They hate black guys and Jews because they wish they had what they have. They've watched so much porn, and they've watched all the women that they want being plowed by black guys. So they want that for themselves, and they hate the black guys because of it. They want the institutional power that the Jews have. They want to own their entertainment industry. They want to own all of their financial system. They want to own all of these things. But they don't have the fucking stones to go out and do it. They just bitch about it online. They just LARP as like, I don't know, they LARP as like Hellenic warlords. When in reality, they're fucking limp-wristed gooners. And this is why they're like, oh, I'm really cool. I've got my OPSEC. You don't know who I am. I'm anonymous. I could be anybody. But in reality, what's the, is this your king? Let me quote a Marvel movie at these guys. Is this your king? Oh, for the people on the podcast, you're going to have to go look at the video to see what just happened, because I know it just went silent all of a sudden. We're still here. All right, we're coming up on your heart out. I know we've been going for over an hour and a half, so to wrap this up, 2-Bit Podcast said, Girardian memetics, if the model which you desire does not exist, become the model. See Don Quixote. Yeah. You gotta become the model for the Red Caesar in order for the Red Caesar to actually come about. We're going to talk more about this. We're going to pick up this conversation more in the future, and we've got some other directions that we want to take it. We'll dig down a little bit more into some of the ideas that we've talked about today. We'll do more Goonuch reports. If you guys can bring some Goonuch content to us, please allow us to be merchants of Goonuch content. You go harvest them for us, and then we'll sell them. We'll do our daily Goonuch report on our show. Oh, 2-Bit says, this is the saving grace of Yarvin. He has said explicitly that he won't be happy until the entire Western system is overthrown or transformed. That's what separates a dissident from a goon. That's a pretty good point. I think that there's for some reason I've retained a measure of I don't know, like sympathy, I guess, for Yarvin and his positions. I haven't completely written him off. And I think that's part of it. I almost get the sense with Yarvin that he, at the end of the day, he kind of recognizes his own limitations. He sort of recognizes that he's self-aware that he's like, yeah, I'm kind of going to fall into this trap just naturally, because I mean, he very much understands this like ethnic nepotism dynamic, and probably knows that no matter what he does, he's not going to be able to negotiate his way out of it. So he's kind of sort of just got to own it. And part of that I sort of respect. And I think, yeah, that he's been very open about these sorts of things. He's the sort of guy that I think he's as right wing as his people can get. I think he's as right wing as they can get. Anyways, thank you guys for showing up here for another show. We appreciate all of you. You can please like this stream, comment on it, let us know what you thought. If you want to fight with us, if you want to tell us how amazing and smart and handsome we are, other accusations or insinuations, we welcome them. Share the show, please. Please go share this with someone else that you think needs to hear it. And when you guys are out, there's a good role for the reply guys. I think that reply guys are good people. Reply guys are people too, you know. And you can start using this, like, call these guys out. Call these guys out on their bullshit when you see it. If people are selling this nihilistic attitude of kind of, you just got to sit around with your thumb up your ass and wait for people to change the system for you, then call them out. Send them this episode if you need to. So 2-Bit says, is Matt going to fall asleep in the voice chat again tonight? Join the Discord and find out. Yeah. Apparently 2-Bit came back in after I fell asleep last night. I fell asleep while we were having the voice chat, and
yeah, I was on my way to work this morning, and I saw Matt was in there, and I log on, and I'm like, Matt.
I didn't even notice until a little while after I woke up. Like, I woke up and I was kind of carrying my phone around, and then I looked down and I realized that I was on the voice chat in King Build. Yeah, we had an amazing conversation last night in there. We usually do. We've been having voice chats all the time. We'll probably do another one at some point later today. So if you'd like to join that, subscribestar.com/kingpilled. That'll get you in there. Got a great group of guys. 2-Bit's in there, and Cooper's in there, obviously, and some other great guys too. So please come join us. Follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled, on Instagram @RealKingPilled, on TikTok @RealKingPilled, and you can follow Cooper @CooperBrooks. You want people to? Where else can people get more Cooper?
I mean, they're not going to get it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because I just lurk. Maybe
you're going to get
retweet something.
You're going to get more Cooper here on the show here before too long. We've got some stuff planned that we're going to be rolling out. You'll get a little more Cooper in your life.
You can always, I mean, probably the best place to find me, honestly, is the Discord server. That's where I hang out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And then we'll do one last pitch for this. If you are a Christian dad over the age of about 25, basically you're someone you have an incentive for responsibility. You have an incentive for more conservative, sober-minded behavior, and you don't like the way that you look or feel. If you're ashamed of your physique, whether you're too much of a limp-wristed goon or too much of a fat pig. In either case, if you're either of that type and you would like to get in shape, you would like to experience the benefits of building muscle, we've got a program for you. It takes less than 30 minutes a week. It's the most efficient program for building muscle, and we can adapt it to any skill level. So if you've never lifted weights in your life, we can work with you. If you're an experienced weightlifter, we can work with you. We've got a lot of guys who are experienced weightlifters who have converted to our program and experienced gains beyond what we expected. So we'd love to work with you. We'd love to help you to begin embodying this attitude of greatness, of pursuing greatness with everything that you do, starting with making yourself look like you're someone who cares about your physique, who cares about the way you come off to the world, and someone who wants to benefit from the benefits of increased muscle mass, increased recoverability, more energy, sleep better, be able to eat more calories, and still lose weight or still build muscle. All of the above. There's all kinds of great benefits that come from gaining extra muscle.
Looking sexy.
Yeah, get all sexy, all sexified. And the best part of all, you get to work personally, one-on-one with our good buddy, Cooper Brooks. So if you're interested, then there is a link in the description. You get to schedule a call and talk with me. I'll go into more details about the specifics of the program. I've got some screening questions for you to make sure you're a good fit, and we can get you added into the program. So click that link, or you can go to thirdpositionnutrition.com. That's 3RD positionnutrition.com. And you can sign, there's a link there. You can sign up, schedule a call there, and we'll get you into the program. This is one of the reasons we started doing this is precisely because we want to give people, if you're hearing this message and you're like, okay, well, I don't know where to start. Maybe one of the things you're struggling with might be brain fog. It might be low energy, maybe low libido. You kind of you don't wake up, pitching a tent like you used to. This is something that happens.
It's hard to have a million kids, which you should, when your dick doesn't work.
Yeah. Kyle says calling all the Twinkies and piggies. Twinkies and piggies. There's our client demographics. If you're a Twinkie or a piggy and you want to experience all these benefits, then you can hit us up and we will help you out. Because this is what we want to give people, the people who are kind of struggling with what do I do next? What's a tangible thing that I can start working on? Maybe sometimes you just need to start working on yourself, like your actual physical body. Begin developing the discipline of lifting weights and watching what you eat, making sure you're eating real food so that you can actually think real thoughts and do real things. Because you are what you eat after all. Make real babies. Yeah, yeah. You want your wife to look at you and actually want you rather than being like, I wish he would get off his phone. I wish he would actually talk to me and pay attention to me. You can get that back. You can recover that. So we have a program for you. We want to give you guys an opportunity to be able to take advantage, to have a call to action, something you can start doing tangibly. Because once you start doing that, once you start lifting weights, once you start building muscle, you get that increased energy, that confidence boost. So many other doors open up for you. You're going to see the opportunities, which is going to increase the number of opportunities available to you. And there's actually going to be greater opportunities because people are going to start taking you seriously.
Yeah, depending where you're at right now, like 6 months to a year, maybe if you've got a long way to go, maybe a year and a half, you can be a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, people will respect you more. All sorts of good things.
You'll start to respect you more.
Yeah,
I think that's
probably more important.
That's a big thing. Yeah, you'll be able to take yourself seriously because you're actually putting skin in the game. You're actually starting to build on this. So you might just need to start with your own body. Start with yourself. Once you get that in order, once you get that in order, that's the cleaning your room thing that Jordan Peterson was talking about. That's part of it. Get yourself in order. Once you get that on straight, all of a sudden maybe all these other doors will open up for you. Maybe you'll be able to see clearly and you can pick out exactly what you want to do.
So subscribestar.com/kingpilled. Join our Discord.
Mm-hmm. Or thirdpositionnutrition.com and sign up for a free introductory coaching call for our fitness and nutrition coaching mission that we're on. Tobias Ruck, where do I sign up? That's where. Shout out Tobias Ruck. I think it's the first time I've seen him in our chat. He's a good dude. You should follow Tobias Ruck on Twitter. All right, guys. There's an hour and 45 minutes. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your holiday. If you don't have anyone to spend time with, go back and watch some old episodes here. I don't know if we'll do an episode tomorrow. We'll find out. But for the time being, appreciate all of you. Have a good Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you later.